I am the managing editor at The Source. My primary focus is digital, but my responsibilities also bleed into the print, the magazine, which is fun because I grew up, or at least my professional life, I grew up reading The Source. And you know, it's made such an impact, the brand has made such an impact on my life that to kind of end up being at The Source at this point in my life is kind of like a dream come true, opportunity to really make my mark and contribute to a brand that I've respected for so many years. I've always thought that if I had a platform to do things the way I wanted to do with regard to telling about the history or documenting the culture as it continues to evolve, this is my opportunity. So basically, I'm very passionate about the culture, about the music, about the people. And to be able to lend my voice in conjunction with so many other people's voices is, to me, it's a fun job. It's a huge responsibility, and it's something that I've got to take responsibility for and approach in a very responsible manner, making sure that everybody on the team's on the same page, as well as being welcome to or encouraging different voices, that are of and from the culture, or even voices that aren't from the culture.
What does The Source mean to the music industry?
The Source was technically the first major magazine publication in the industry at the time that it was introduced to the world. It was the sole voice of the hip-hop culture and politics and music and all things under the umbrella of hip-hop. The Source was the source of your hip-hop news.
Are you planning to reposition The Source in any way now that you're leading the charge?
We would definitely have to. We definitely have to.
Do you have any kind of strategy for?
I can tell you that one of the things that we are currently working on, being that The Source has been in existence for over 20 years, we have an extensive catalog of footage, an extensive catalog of events that we captured. We're about to launch a video channel, Source TV.
You've been to law school, you went to an Ivy League college,
yes.
Right? And you went into the record industry, and now you're here. Tell me about your career.
I consider myself first generation. Even before we get into my career, to tell the whole story, I've got to really go, to the beginning of my relationship with hip hop. And I definitely consider myself first generation hip hop. I remember a world when hip hop didn't exist. I remember listening to my favorite radio shows, and there wasn't such a thing as hip hop music. So I vividly recall in the late 70s hearing someone that I thought was cool, kind of like rapping to themselves and saying these nursery school rhymes, and it didn't connect. I was like, well, that's pretty interesting. And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, hearing a mixtape from either Harlem or the Bronx with Grandmaster Flash or the Treacherous 5 MC. If someone tells you that the world is flat, you believe that the world is flat. When someone explains to you, really walks in the world, when I first hip hop music, it was that type of moment. I listened to rock and playing type of music, new form of music where people my age and my generation are rapping to beats that I can identify with, very known. And that's when my career started. I was a Cornell undergrad, fine arts major, and I was a fine arts major. Art history, performance space. I was an arts major. Well, it's funny because at the time at Cornell, and this was in the mid-'80s, there was only another black student that attended the courses with me. And at some point at Cornell, throughout my, I think it was my second year in fine arts, studying fine arts, I got the sense that I needed to come out of Reaganomics, mining neighborhood didn't necessarily look like the neighborhood, that some of my fellow students came from. I knew they had, the black men, I knew they had something more substantial. I've always had a love of words and decided that I would switch my career so that I would have a fair chance of landing into law school. Fast forward a couple of years later, I end up at Georgetown University with hip hop as my soundtrack. Make it through Georgetown Law School. Graduate from law school, and this is at the end of the 80s when the origins of the rap music industry is starting to, they've come out of gestation stage. I'm looking at Russell Simmons and his creation of culture. I'm looking at Andre Harrell and his creation of Uptown Records, and seeing these young black executives who grew up around the same time in culture and the art form as I did, but because they were a little bit older, just had a little, were able in a position to trailblaze what this music industry could look like. Here I am now with a law degree, and I'm eager to apply my talent, at least my skills that I've learned to the hip hop. Be it film, be it television, be it whatever. And by a stroke of genius and luck and persistence, I landed my first gig at Def Jam. Now, I was at Def Jam for a brief moment because the attorney that I worked for, he was like, go. But now I have Def Jam on my resume. And in 1991, any young attorney, any young black attorney with the Def Jam on his resume. So, that was a golden opportunity. They always say, whatever industry you're trying to break into, I worked with, I was hired by a sole practitioner by the name of Louise West. And Louise is considered a pioneer amongst the black attorneys. She's one of the co-founders of BEVLA, which is the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association, in the 70s. She was a very huge she was kind of like the retro jazz, she also managed groups like Glenn Jones. And she knew that, the music was changing. She needed someone who had some type of edge or some type of relationship in the hip-hop culture, and that was me. So here I come with this knowledge, this extensive knowledge of this new culture, and she's training me as an attorney based on her years as a skilled attorney in the industry. And through her, we were able to structure some pretty interesting the early rap deals that led into bigger rap deals, such as one of the first clients that she represented that were of the hip hop culture was a young man, I think he was 16 or 17 at the time, and Damon was managing two groups. His uncle happened to really introduced him to some of his very first deals in the music industry. Now, who knew later that Damon Dash would become the Damon Dash, co-founder of Rockefeller Records, founder, or at least the first person to ever really truly invest in the phenomenon that is now Jay-Z. So, it was a very magical time working on these small deals and seeing individuals like the Jay-Z's walk through our offices, young individuals that had a lot of promise, but you couldn't read the future. But young individuals like Sean Puffy Jones, all of us in the same environment. No, I didn't work with Sean, but I had seen Sean throughout. It was just a small amount of us trying to do something in the industry. And what happened was he eventually started his label. And I would say about 60% of the clients that I had been working with at the time became his primary producers.
What did you do specifically?
Initially, he was working with Damon, and we just tried to get this guy together. I basically shot Damon and Jay-Z with the assistance of DJs. I guess would be in the studio all night working. They would show up at my office and be like, yo, let's do something. I can tell you what I did primarily for Jay-Z was kind of a whole lot of girls. To try to introduce him to some executives. No, at the time, it was virtually impossible to get Jay-Z. I'm talking about, this 1994. No one would budge on this young Jay-Z.